Roommates. We are the group 2 and my members are Kanyeda Brent, Cortez Jenray, Daitik Carl J, Gakrama Adrian, Lapot Jundev, Panilaga Rogel, Pataganaw John, and I am Matthew Dems. So, our topic is boundaries of self online. So, what is our objective of this topic? Our objective of this topic is that after these lessons, the students must know what are their boundaries in online, how important good boundaries for healthy relationship, different types of boundaries, examples of boundaries. Boundaries of self online. So what is boundaries of self online? As technology continues to rapidly advance, individuals and society are profoundly changed. So too are the tools used to measure this universe, and therefore our understanding of reality improves. Boundaries of self and reality online examines the idea that technological advance associated with the internet are moving us even to the very nature of reality. Boundaries are dissolving and we are redefining the elements of identity. The book begins with explorations of the digitally constructed self and the relationship between the individual and technology reality. Then, the focus shifts to study at large, and it includes a contribution from Chinese researchers about the isolated Chinese internet. The later chapters of the book explore digital reality at large, including discussion on virtual reality, web consciousness, and digital physics. So why is setting healthy boundaries important? We all have our personal lives. Boundaries we would feel more comfortable navigating life and our relationship with. The thing is, not everyone has the same boundaries, and most people aren't capable of guessing what another person's boundaries may be. Setting boundaries is simply about communicating your needs for healthy interaction to someone else. It isn't always easy. Not everyone may like or understand your boundaries or your reason for setting them, but if you don't set those boundaries, you certainly can't expect them to be followed. Good boundaries are very important for healthy relationship. When it comes to online, we rarely think to create clear out boundaries. Boundaries of self and reality online examines the idea that technological advance associated with the internet are moving us in multiple domains towards various edges. These edges range from self. Personal boundaries are the set guidelines, rules, or limits that a person creates identity reasonable, safe, and permissible way for people to behave towards them. It often takes courage and strength to set boundaries. When you do so, you can feel comfortable knowing your lines have been set, your needs have been communicated, and if someone chooses to violate your boundaries after that, you would be within your rights to create further distance between yourself and that person.
So, good evening to you, everyone. And before I'll introduce my topic for today, I'll introduce my name first. So, my name is Brenjan Kanyeda. My topic for today is personal boundaries. So, personal boundaries. Yeah. The act of setting boundaries is a life skill that has been popularized by self-help authors and support groups since the mid 1980s. Self boundaries, personal boundaries, yay, excuse me. So, personal boundaries, it is the practice of open openly communicating and asserting personal values as a way to preserve and protect against having them compromised or violated. So, personal boundaries is like also self-care, because when you don't have any self-care to yourself, you can be what do you call that, basta self-care is so important. That's why you need to learn personal boundaries. um Personal boundaries, so these are the limits and rules we set for ourselves, just like I said that within relationships. A person with healthy boundaries can say no to others when they want to, but they are also comfortable opening themselves up to intimacy and close relationships. Examples: go through my personal belongings, invade my personal space, and criticize me. These boundaries may have to do with physical contact. Um, Personal boundaries, for example, physical contact, like you and your friends are, what do you call that, shaking their hands, and may murag sabot ba, yeah, man example sa personal boundaries sa physical contact. And another one is verbal interaction. For example nga, nag istorya mo nya na may gisabutan nga kanang butanga mo, ganahan yung tanan siya nimo nga ganahan ba ka madto or di, nya imong gingon nga di ka ganahan madto kay na kay lakaw, nya mura sad kag nang giplastikan ang kaaton niya nga tawa ba, mo na siya personal boundaries na siya, para dili maglain ninyong kuan, di mo mag away, mo na siya nga mingon jud kag no, kay wala mo na gingon nga nakay pag-care sa imong self, mo na siya gamit yang personal boundaries. Dapat we need to learn this, huh? Our own, another one is our own personal space. For our own personal space, dapat nasa tay personal boundaries sa bisag asa, bisag kinsa nga tao, nga para lang mo upgrade atong self. Dapat kabawta mo set og boundaries sa lain-lain nga tao. Yeah. And there are 4 types of personal boundaries. Healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries are those boundaries that are set to make sure mentally and emotionally you are stable. Another way to think about it is that our boundaries might be rigid, loose, somewhere in between, or even non-existent. So, mo na siya ang healthy boundaries na later on I will explain to you the common traits of these types of personal boundaries. So I'll discuss to you first the meaning of these personal boundaries. The non-existent boundaries. On the opposite end of the spectrum to rigid boundaries, non-existent types are equally as harmful to a person. There is no filter of what comes in and what goes out. Therefore, the imaginary line is completely absent. Without a filter, they can offer too much personal information about themselves, which can lead to others taking advantage of them. Plus, they often lack the capacity to say no, this can be a dangerous combination. So sa non-existent boundaries mura siya kanang okay ra niya nga kuanon siya sa mga tao siyang palibot nga dili na siya kabalibad ba. Okay, wala man siya boundaries siyang kagalingon, non-existent ba. And porous boundaries. People with porous boundaries are too involved and enmeshed with others. They often are highly dependent on other people and struggle with feelings of anxiety, burnout, and the need to please others. They are likely to struggle to say no to others people requests and demands. Kini siya nga boundaries, types of boundaries. Like usa siya ka tawo nga dili siya kabalibad kung nay pang example na mga agda niya inana dili siya kabalibad. Mao na siya nga type sa personal boundaries. That is porous boundaries. And lastly is the rigid boundaries. A person who always keeps others at a distance, whether emotionally, physically, or otherwise, is said to have rigid boundaries. So, rigid boundaries, mo to siya nga. Kanang pirmi siya na, a person who always keeps others at a distance, often referred to as having a wall up. People with these boundaries find relationships difficult. They won't allow anything to flow in or out, like having a black filter. So we'll go to the common traits of these 4 types of physical boundaries. Rigid boundaries. The common type of common what do you call that? Common traits of rigid boundaries. First one is avoids intimacy and close relationships. Unlikely to ask for help, has few close relationships, very protective of personal information, may seem detached even with romantic partners, keep others at a distance to avoid a possibility of rejection. So rigid boundaries are like people who has a personality like kanang dili sila hilig og kanang makig kuan barog tao makig halubilo kay wala ka sila mga relationship sa laing tao kanang ganahan sila lang kaugalingon ra pirmi lang kasabay mo na siya avoid siya mga close relationships ba di ka siya hilig og makig-close sa mga laing tao kay mao lagi may boundaries para siyang kaugalingon niya. Very protective of personal information. Iya yung di seryoso ba, iya yung protektahan ng mga personal information, di niya ipakatag na. So, arita sa porous boundaries, overshares personal information. So, yang lahi ra siya sa rigid boundaries kay iyang i-keep ang mga kuan mga information nga nabawaan nga para sa iyang kawalingon ra gyud diri sa porous boundaries. Iyang na-overshare ang mga personal information like iyang ipanambi ngadto sa laing tao ba. Mo ni siya kani siya nga common traits niya nasa niyang dili makabalibad. Mo ni siya gitawag og difficulty of saying no to the request of others. Mo ni yung gingon ganina niya. Over involved with others problem like kanang magapil-apil ba panalitan imong amigo na problema ikaw diha apil sa jud ka imo lagi mo na imong common traits kay nakay porous boundaries dependent on the opinions of others and accepting of abuse or disrespect para nako mo ni siya ang murag nakanindot ra diri dapita sa porous boundaries nga kung nakay common trait ni nani kay maka-accept ra kag mga kung gi-abuse ba ka disrespect that and nasa siya kanang fears of rejection if they do not comply with others. So, ari na to sa pinaka-importante nga dapat yun ninyong magatunan na healthy boundaries. Mo ni siya ang dapat yun nga itong katuunan sa itong mga kagalingon para natay pagpangga sa itong kagalingon para ma-upgrade yun da. So, mo ni ang common traits sa healthy boundaries. Values own opinions. Mo ni pinaka-importante ha. Imo jud i-value yung own opinion. Imo ni magdaan mo sa kalambuan. Doesn't compromise value for others. Dili raman sad nga wa kay paki sa laing tao. Pero dapat imo sa yung tanawon nga sakto ba niyang gibuhat or sayop nya kana siya isudal na siya muna una nga okay ra na siya tao ra na siya nga naras na iyang kinaiya nya shares personal information in an appropriate way. Mo ni siya sakto gyud in appropriate way gyud kung mo share tag mga information di ta magminaritis no nya knows personal wants and needs and can communicate them. Kung kita man gani tao dapat kabago gyud sa itong mga personal wants and needs kay kung kaila lang gyud sa itong kagalingon makuha ang ginanato no nya lastly mo na yung mga common traits accepting when others say no to them nga panalitan mo ingon nimong amigo nga ay panalitan ng hagad kasi yung amigo manglaag mo nya maingon siya no. So dapat imo nang dawaton niyang nanibalibad sa imo kay wata ka ba na siya importante laing lakaw. So ano siya. So that's all for today. And that's all for today, but that's all for my topic, personal boundaries. So hope you guys understand my English na sinsae nga naisagol nga may Bisaya. Thank you. Bye-bye.
So, good evening guys. My name is Adrian Kakraman and I will tackle about the emotional boundaries. So, emotional boundaries. If you don't enforce your boundaries, other people will regularly cross them because they assume you're okay with it. Healthy emotional boundaries not only help to guide your positive personal relationships, but they protect you from the negative. If you're fully aware that you are not willing to deal with it, with a particular thing, so communicate that clearly to the other person, and they still do that thing, then you have nothing to feel bad about when you are decided to step away from them. So, emotional boundaries. If you kung di mo maset ang emotional boundaries, some people will kanang mag-abusado, kanang masakitan na kanila, pagtuon nila nga okay ra na nila, okay ra na nimo nga ila ka pasakitan. So also boundaries can protect you from being from harm. And kung kanisang kung himuon gyapon pero pwede ram sa din mo siya communicate ka sa kana nga person kung nganong ngani para dili na niya balikon mo, pero kung iyahan na gyapon balikon, so wala man tayo mahimo, so okay mahimo, so step away na lang sa kanang person because kanang pwede ba kung ang emotional pwede kung nasubraan na gyud ang iyang gipangbuhat nimo, so pwede siya maabot sa depression. Yan, depression kay depression can kill. So those boundaries also empower you to better help the people you are for, or other struggling people. They serve as a defense against the emotional load and turmoil of other people. It's much easier to step into troublesome space when your boundaries are intact. It's so much easier to step back out and leave those troubles where they belong. So, kaning emotional boundaries kay maka help ni kanang to empower other, it can help you to empower other people ka-struggling sad nga daghan ka ng mga tao nga gipang bully, just like kanang mga tao nga gipang bully. So pwede sa tudlo ni ingon nila yung mga mag-set kag boundaries, siguro mo silang ingon nga mag-set kag boundaries para dili na ka bulihon sa ubang tao. Kay mas nindot man nga mo step back ka sa kanang nga trouble kay para mas to protect ourselves. So emotional boundaries often have to do with how others talk to and treat us. And they aren't always things we think to set until after a boundary has already been crossed. This is okay, though. Let's say you got into an argument with someone and they called you an unkind name. Once you have both calmed down, the best way to set an emotional boundary with that person is to kanang kani mo siyang boundaries kay pwede rin sa nini mo kana sa nang kanina ka sa usa ka argument. So, pwede man mo lang pwede lang mo magtabi if kanang you set ka mo duha mag-set kanang makalma na mo duha. Then and the best way to set that emotional boundaries with a person is approach them, and the second is ask to speak about the argument, and yung tabi and both of you mag-talk mo about ganong nag-argument mo ni ano nga butang. So then ang latulo kay own any part you may have played the argument going awry. Then the four is tell them that you are not okay with name calling and that you will need them to engage without stopping to that level in the future. So, igatabi na nyo, nga kalma mo duha, pwede mo naman ingnon nga, ko, di ko ganahan na ni nga, tabi ka na ko, tawag ka na ko ni pangana, kay, kana, kuhan sa mga emotional damage na ako. So, that's all, and thank you.
Mental boundaries. Mental boundaries refer to your personal thought process. Always seeing eye to eye with another person is not possible. Everyone has different experiences, but you have the right to your own thoughts, values, beliefs, and opinions. It is important to give and receive respect when it comes to mental boundaries. If expressing yourself is met with aggression, invalidation, or belittling, then it might be worth disengaging. It is not impossible to have conversations with people who do not agree with your every thought. But both participants need to be willing to listen and speak in non-judgmental and respectful way. Here are some tips for establishing boundaries. Number 1, give yourself permission to focus on yourself and make your safety and comfort a priority. A lot of the time, we stretch our boundaries or postpone setting and enforcing boundaries because we feel guilt or fear a negative response. In reality, boundaries not only contribute to healthy relationship with others, they also bolster self-respect and self-love. Number 2 is practice self-awareness. Listen to your gut. Part of creating boundaries is prioritizing your comfort so you can feel safe and be present with others. But in order to do that, you need to acknowledge your feelings and honor them. Number 3, name your limits. Sit with your emotions and identify what you need physically, emotionally, and mentally so you can identify your limits and better communicate them to others. A helpful method for this is the boundary circle. Number 4, be consistent with the boundaries you've set. We can't expect others to know how we're feeling at any given moment,
So we have to clearly communicate with others if they cross our boundaries. Number 5, if you aren't sure where to start, use I statements. I statements can help keep the focus on expressing your thoughts, feelings, and opinions without worrying the others are thinking. Describe your reaction to an unwelcome situation and why you have that response. Then clearly lay out what you need to feel secure. Number 6, be direct, clear, and simple. When setting and enforcing boundaries, state what you need as clearly and calmly as possible. You don't need to justify, defend, or apologize for your boundaries. You can always adjust the tone or manner with which you enforce your boundaries you like as well. Number 7, if setting boundaries makes you uncomfortable or anxious, start small. You 100% deserve to say no without feeling guilty, but it can take practice. Start by setting a small boundary in a space that feels more manageable and work your way up. If it makes you feel more comfortable, you can offer an alternative when setting a boundary. And last but not least, if you need backup, get support. Defining and asserting boundaries can get even trickier if you or a loved one lives with a mental health condition, mood disorder, or a history of trauma, especially if you share a living space together. It's important to check in regularly to make sure that everyone is content with their needs being met and boundaries respected. That's all. Thank you.
Good morning, sir. Good evening, everyone. I'm John Michael Astorga Pataganao. I'm gonna discuss about the physical boundaries. Physical boundaries include your needs for personal space, your comfort with touch, and your physical needs like need to rest, eat food, and drink water. It is okay to let people know that you don't want to be touched or that you need more space. It is also okay to say that you are hungry or that you need to rest. Physical boundary violations feel like receiving inappropriate or unwanted touch, being denied your physical needs, told to keep walking when you are tired or that you need to wait to eat or drink, or having someone come into your personal space in a way what it's uncomfortable. Entering your room without permission, for example. This can vary on spectrum from mild to severe. The most severe violation result in serious physical abuse or neglect. Let's say you aren't comfortable with shaking hands, while this tends to be a social norm. There are many reasons a person may pandemic. The best way to set this boundary is before even becomes an issue. When you meet someone new. Example, wave from a few away. Smile and say, I don't shake hands but I'm so glad to meet you. Don't feel the need to apologize or explain yourself beyond that. That's all, sir.
Good day, sir. My name is Jundip Iflapot. So, my topic is all about material boundaries. Material boundaries refer to money and possession. Healthy material boundaries involve setting limits on what you will share and with whom. For example, it may be appropriate to lend a card to a family member, but probably not someone you met this morning. They refer to your financials and your possessions and how much you allow others to share them. Violation of these boundaries include people borrowing your things and never returning them or destroying or destroying them. People stealing your possessions or taking advantage of you. Using money or possessions to manipulate and control you. We need to remember that our possessions usually have not only a material meaning, but also some emotional value. And so our things will have their own boundaries and barriers in our minds, depending on our environment and with whom they come in touch. Let's say you have a compare that a close friend wants to borrow for a trip with their friends. You're open to letting them use it, but you also want to make sure that they take care of it the way you would. In this case, it's perfectly acceptable to outline your boundaries for care in writing, providing instructions for cleanup and general care. Written instructions placed inside the camper would be simpler for your friends to look back to, and they also help make your boundaries very clear. Thank you.
Good evening, sir. My topic is all about time boundaries. You deserve to set healthy emotional boundaries. Respect, time, space, privacy, care, and value. Time boundaries. Setting time boundaries means understanding your priorities and setting aside enough time for the many areas of your life without overcommitting. When you understand your priorities, it is just easier to limit the amount of time you are giving to other people. So, people to tend to fall within two categories regarding time. Those who run late to everything, and those who tend to think that if you are not early, you are late. If you are the later, you likely feel as though your boundaries are often intruded on by the former. This is actually a very simple solution to navigate. However, so number one, decide in your mind how long you are willing to wait beyond an agreed upon meeting time. So number two, give yourself permission to leave or cancel an appointment if that time isn't met. If you are dealing with someone who is perpetually late, communicate this to them ahead of time. Let them know you will be leaving after a certain amount of time has passed. Still, try not to sound as accusatory. Considers acknowledging that you two have different personalities. You are not trying to change them, but you need to set time boundaries for yourself because you can afford or don't want to wait any longer. So that's my topics.
Good evening, sir. I'm Rohel Nino Panilagaw, and my topic is why is setting healthy boundaries important? We all have our own personal lines, boundaries we would feel more comfortable navigating life and our relationship with. The thing is, not everyone has the same boundaries, and most people are not capable of guessing what other person's boundaries may be. Setting boundaries is simply about communicating your needs for healthy interaction to someone else. It is not always easy. Not everyone may like or understand your boundaries, of your reason for setting them. But if you don't set those boundaries, you certainly can expect to them to be followed. Why are boundaries online necessary? It's important to create limits in regard to who we follow, what sort of content we consume, and how much time we spend on internet. First and foremost, they're necessary for our safety. As danger like hacking and catfishing long, it's imperative to set up barriers to protect our personal data and identify from strangers online, such as increasing our privacy settings or limiting the amount of profile information available on the internet. How can we create boundaries online? The most common boundary people are looking to create is a limit to how much of our personal information other people can access. And surprisingly, the best way to create these sorts of barriers would be through increasing your privacy settings, keeping your Twitter and Instagram on private, changing your Facebook privacy settings to ensure strangers cannot contact you, and create separate emails or social media accounts for work versus your social life are always good ways to create these barriers. That's all. Thank you.